everyone, I'm Elaine Chow.
And I'm Trist Curlis.
And welcome to the Musician's Loop.
Loop, like a drum loop?
No, like the kind of thing that a jeweler uses to evaluate gems.
Oh, like a magnifying glass, like what we'll do on this podcast, actively listening to music like a musician.
That's right. And every week, we are choosing a track to dive into together and share our thoughts about what we find intriguing about the song.
Whether it's songwriting, chord progression, instrumentation, recording technology, arrangement, whatever, we're looking at the music we love through the lens, or the loop, of decades in the music industry.
Hey, Trist, what do we have this week?
This week, we have something a little different. We've got something, when it was released, it got up to number 3 on the U.S. pop charts.
Oh.
A band from Australia.
Okay.
And a song that was reportedly a favorite of both Frank Sinatra and John Lennon.
Okay, interesting intersection there.
And the song mentions Glenn Miller and Cole Porter.
Okay, this is going to be a really interesting intersection, I see.
That's a pretty broad one, isn't it? That's the tune by a Little River band called Reminiscing.
Oh, interesting. It sounds like it's something that I should be familiar with.
Probably. I know we have this conversation all the time of, I think there's obvious, this is songs that everybody knows and then Elaine doesn't know it. And that's actually why this podcast is so much fun, because I take for granted that I think everyone knows the song and then Elaine very often does not. But that's great. We love that.
We are going to see. But before we break for a moment, can you remind our listeners how we should be listening to music as a part of the Musician's Loop community?
Well, number one, we are glad you're listening at all, no matter how, no matter where. We're just glad to have you with us. That said, if you can take just a moment and elevate your listening, whether it's go into the quiet room, go into the room with the better speakers, find the headphones that are nicer. They're probably your kids, because they're almost always nicer, right? If you can improve your listening situation at all, give yourself a treat and do that. Even if you can't, thanks for being with us, and give the tune a listen.
All right, so we are going to go ahead and leave the links to the song in the show notes, and we'll be right back. For once, I actually knew this song.
Yay!
It was so
everybody,
familiar.
Elaine knew this one.
I know. It was so familiar, and I feel like it is because we've heard the song not only on the radio, but also in a lot of pop culture. I don't know whether I've seen it in, movies, any other type, like
there's
maybe
a lot of pop culture references over the years, lots of times that it makes its way,
television
and especially
shows.
from the time period, just as the song suggests, people reminiscing about this song from the 70s.
So let me dig into this because it sounded very classic 70s to me.
Mm-hmm.
And just taking a look at this, when was it actually released?
This one was released in 1978.
Okay, yeah, so like in mid to late 70s. And what I heard was lush strings, horns, very simple rock drums, but also a lot of what I would consider non-electric instruments, right? We're talking about hand drums. And there was something about the way that the lead singer was mixed that just seemed a little bit more, oh, this is classic 70s. Maybe it was a little thinner, right? It wasn't like the fuller, more intimate mix that we've heard in other eras. There were a ton of 7/9 chords in there, and that just was very classic 70s to me. I love playing major sevens and ninths all over the place, and I'd say that it's probably the 70s influence on my music. But yeah, I felt like there was a lot of it that was like very classic 70s to me. So I'm really interested in hearing why you decided to choose this song this week.
Well, like so many weeks, I'm just going about my day and a song hits me that I've always loved. And it's like, have I ever really dissected this much or talked much about it? Oftentimes songs like this I bring up and realize there's some lyrics I didn't know, or I hadn't thought about the point of view, or an instrument I didn't hear in it. So it's a song I've always really liked. Yeah, I think a song like from this era, a lot of these songs kind of in my musical life from childhood to now have had different ups and downs where I just wouldn't listen to a song like this because I was into this phase of whatever music in high school, and then learned more about harmony and liked the chord. And I feel like I always liked this song. I never had a period of time where I turned my nose up or didn't think this song was cool. I always thought this song was cool. It's not like any other songs from this time to me.
It's interesting you say that because I just identified a number of things that to me indicated that it was a 70s song. And on top of that, the Rhodes sound, the very clean electric bass. And I would also say maybe an unhurried tempo. So I think
Hmm.
about the tempo, it's like 94, 95 beats per minute. It's very similar to Staying Alive in terms of just this. I don't know if it's really the swagger that I'm hearing, the very John Travolta kind
Right.
of,
Right.
you
It's
know,
weird that you say that because I thought that interesting too, that it's kind of a ballad, but almost still danceable, which is
yeah.
just an odd. It's not really a dance track, and it's not really just a ballad either. And that's goes with the content. It's not like a love song, and it's not a celebrate and get up and dance song. It's reminiscent. It's like somewhere in the middle, which again, a lot of times I think songs tend to commit one way or the other, and they don't live in this middle place that frequently, at least not, and become big hits.
I just wonder now that you've mentioned it, how many other songs sit at about this tempo. And I think you're right. I think
That
that
or
it's
big hits at
either.
least.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that is interesting to think about. Like, why is it that we shy away from that in this kind of middle ground?
Yeah, interesting. I read, in preparing for this, of course, no secret, we look up little anecdotes, look at little things we can find online, stories about it. And when they recorded this album, this particular song, they tried 3 different takes of it because they had different keyboard players, and it didn't work, and it didn't work. And then they finally got what they thought was right and thought it fit well on the album, but they're listening to the album themselves and they couldn't really hear what a single would be, and turned it into the record company in Australia and they couldn't figure out what a single would be. Of course, back then that was the thing you did. It's like, okay, we love this whole album, but you want to have a lead single that really stands out, that's going to sell the album. And the label couldn't decide on what we either. And then they sent it to America, and one of the A&R people in America heard it and said, "You guys are crazy. This Reminiscing song, that's a hit. That's a single." And everyone, they just kind of threw their hands up like, well, okay, at least someone had an idea that it would be. And so they went with it. And there you go. They're not always
Sure
right,
enough.
but at least this time they were.
I do think about how the concept of taste and especially cultural taste is really introduced. I am really fascinated by that, especially if some radio executive is saying, "No, this is your single. Let's
Hmm.
go ahead and release this as a single and let's see how it does." It definitely seems like both an art and a science.
My total guess is that that person heard what I was just describing. Like, it didn't sound like other stuff, yet there's still catchy parts of it. It's got ear candy, interesting things to listen to. And it just stands out from being just different enough from everything else at the time that that's what that person heard. Thank goodness.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot in there. And I'm just taking a look at the lyrics right now. It is a very well constructed song. There are a couple of things about this song that I do wanna point out, and one of them has to do with the orientation around time. And because this is a song about reminiscing, certainly time is a really important thing. You're thinking backwards, maybe into decades, but you're also orienting and anchoring in one specific date. So it starts out with Friday night in first verse. And then you have in the third verse another reference to Friday night and talking about what the narrator was doing at that particular time. And as we go into these things, it's like moments that are described in very lyrical ways. We were hand in hand. Glenn Miller's band. There are little flickers here and there from a variety of different epics or eras of this couple's love story. And you were referring to Glenn Miller's band. Well, Glenn Miller, well known for In the Mood, right? And then Cole Porter, who probably overlapped a little bit, but again, this is written in the 70s, and both Glenn Miller and Cole Porter were really, really well known at least 2 decades before.
Hmm.
So I just find that absolutely fascinating to think about how the lyrics painted in very crisp strokes a picture that anchored us in a particular era of time and just helped us to understand what this person is referring to, these moments of memories that really form and anchor a relationship over time.
I think what I found fascinating, like I mentioned earlier, I find out things that I'd never had really realized before. I'd always picked out the fact that when they mentioned Glenn Miller, then there's like a little big band horn riff, and then talk about the Cole Porter tune and the background vocals sing Night and Day, which is one of his biggest songs. So those little references I caught and loved. But there's this weird tense time shift that happens because Friday night it was late. You're describing like this is the evening, it's present tense. But the chorus is like telling my future self not to mess this up now so later on we can reminisce about now. And I never picked that up from ever all the millions of times I've listened to it. So the chorus, hurry, don't be late, I can hardly wait, I said to myself when we're old. Like the tense shifts within I
Yeah.
said to myself when we're old is odd. We'll go dancing in the dark, walking the park, and reminiscing. If I get this right now, if I do all of these things now Friday night when I'm walking home, I'm dreaming of tonight, I hope I don't mess this up. So in the future, we can reminisce about this now. And I never really picked up on that being the thing
Yeah, and
before.
I see that pivot point happening in the 3rd verse,
Right.
starting with "Now as the years roll on," so that
Right.
anchors in today. Each time we hear our favorite song, the memories come along, and so it's really talking about, again, the sense of reminiscing, right?
Hmm.
But really this time that you've spent together and thinking and reflecting on the times that you have spent together, and music being an anchor to memory, which I think
Ooh,
both you
yeah,
and I will say that we both have very strong memories associated with music.
of course. Just so cool. I'm glad we dug into this because again, that lyric, I just didn't really pay much attention to like that kind of future tense stuff. I was more focused on the musicy things. Not to mention a flugelhorn solo. It's not typical to have that anywhere, but just on the way out, and it's so good. It's so good. All the jazz happiness in this pop song. There was more room for that back in the day, for sure.
It's interesting that you mention the flugelhorn and some of the other little elements that you really appreciate about the song. One thing that I did notice about this was the mix was surprisingly mid and low heavy for this particular era.
Hmm.
I don't know whether I just had a different expectation of a radio ready mix or whatnot, but when I was listening to it, I was really impressed by how much bass it had. And I think maybe it's because I've just heard other things from maybe the 60s where the bass wasn't mixed as high. But
Mm-hmm.
for this one, there seemed to be a lot more of a foundation that I heard in the song that is probably a lot more contemporary.
Hmm.
And it sounded pretty interesting to me, just to my untrained ear when it comes to that.
Yeah, mix is really great now in revisiting for this show. It's so well done. Again, especially back in the day, it's not Pro Tools, it's not fine tuning everything with your computer. It's recorded onto tape and mixed down to tape and real strings and horns and great background vocals. The mix of those chords on the choruses is just killer. Just so well done. A great headphone track for sure.
And there's a harp at the very beginning, right?
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
was listening to that Lush Strings intro, which actually sounded a lot more 1950s to me. It sounded like a very classic 1950s ballad introduction, and that glissando on the harp at the very beginning leading into it.
You know,
That actually
many times, not only on the radio, there are different versions that don't have that little intro on it.
hmm,
So the one that I shared with you for this episode has that. And even when I sent it to you, I was like, oh, right. I don't remember hearing this as often. It's like you go to streaming service after streaming service, or, oh, this is the remastered one that they reissued, and then this is the one from the original album, or this is from a collection. There are different versions I've heard out in the world that don't have that. It's like a little clip right at the beginning of it before the bum 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 bum. For those of you
right,
familiar with the song who didn't stop and listen to it, I think most of us think of the song starting there,
right.
and I always think of that, but there's a little vignette. It's symbolic of like this whole song is about taking you back to a time. So I dug that.
It was really interesting because I wrote down when I listened to it, it's a "That's Amore" kind of, there's this very 1950s feel about it, and I guess I understand why you said that Frank Sinatra really liked it because it's a very Frank Sinatra kind of feel with
Right.
this lush string solo, but I think it introduced us to a sound that was a lot more flat as compared to the lush strings. And I think it really changes our perspective where we're talking about the lushness. Maybe it's like the lushness of our memories. And now
Uh-huh.
we're in today in this kind of unhurried tempo and we're spending time reminiscing, and that is a big part of it. Yeah, it's just interesting to think about the language of music from that perspective.
Yep. That's a good one.
Well, any other things that you want to talk about?
I think that's it. It's just so great. I will say for those out there, we might put in the link to. They recorded a version in Spanish, which is really interesting. That'd be a whole other episode. Is we should use one of these episodes and have another language version. It doesn't quite hit the same, and it's not because I don't speak it more fluently. It's just that rhythmically it doesn't fit right, and it definitely feels like an afterthought, like, oh, this is a big hit, we need to do this for these other markets, get back in there. Oh, I don't have the real mic here, use this cheaper mic. Okay, we don't have time to actually mix it as well as we did the first one. It kind of interesting to me how a lot of that seems to fall apart on the Spanish version.
Well, I would love to talk about something like this as a Spanish speaker. I definitely have thoughts about how translations fit into the music, especially since you know me, I'm definitely a pro meter kind of person. Like, it has to be perfect meter, otherwise, I get very upset. Maybe next time, but thank you so much for introducing this to us. We're going
Mm-hmm.
to shift gears and enter into our next segment, which is
Mailbag, mailbag, mailbag.
That's right, the mailbag. And if you want to get a hold of us, please shoot us an email at themusiciansloop, that's LOUPE at gmail.com, or reach out to us at the musicians loop on both Instagram and threads.
If you have any other anecdotes of your own, or any other thoughts or other versions of this song that we should know about, or any questions, or even corrections and retractions section coming up soon, as soon as you send us some, that's the place to do it.
Awesome. So this week's mailbag is also from threads. This is actually two different threads posts that I saw at two different points in time, but I think it highlights a topic that we probably want to talk about. And so the first one is from Styx Writes from January of 2026. And the second one is from Sarah Sims from July of 2025. So the first person, Styx Writes, said, is there an age limit to stop pursuing your music career? LOL, serious question. And the second person, Sarah, she says, killing ageism in the music industry. Music is art. There is no expiration date. For years, I was convinced otherwise. If you are a musician, singer songwriter over 40, holler at me in the comments so that we can all support each other. I am quote unquote level 47 and making the best music of my life. So I think that where I'd like to go with here is just to open up this discussion about ageism in the music industry, if that's something that you see, if that's something that you've witnessed over the decades that you've been in the music industry, and just to share some thoughts about where you see the music industry going and what opportunities there are for people who are maybe a little bit older in music.
Well, in many ways, this is a very simple, short conversation. No, there is no age limit. And yes, what this person says is true. It definitely hasn't happened yet, but killing ageism in the music industry would be fantastic. Everything Sarah said about that is right on. I think one of the things in this new era of recording that I'm always talking about, man, it's cool that everybody can make music now and get it released. The problem is now anybody can make music now and get it released. The part of that is the positive is where maybe in a system before where there was a smaller window to get through, a smaller place to shoot through, and you had people, usually men, deciding everything, making all the decisions, and having your look and your age and everything kind of decide if, like, oh, I have these two artists that are kind of the same, but this one is more conventionally attractive and has a different four-person that looks better, and so we're going to go with them. And plus, they're 20 years younger. Those are the kinds of things, rather than just musically like, oh, both of these bands are really good, let me sign them both. That used to be more of a thing. So I suppose it helps that those barriers to entry aren't like that as much anymore. I'd love to say that it's non existent, but this happens in all entertainment fields. Unfortunately, I think it happens more to women in that I've experienced just with women that I will talk to about, oh, you should do this thing. And before I even can finish saying it, oh, they won't take me. I'm too old for that. I'm just like, oh, what? So it definitely opens my eyes to that thing that they have to deal with more frequently. It's not that exclusively, but I feel like even more so for women in terms of being front of something. And hopefully that's just becoming less and less. And it'd be great to have that just be completely gone. And if you're doing something musically good, it's musically good and doesn't really matter how old you are.
This is an interesting topic for me, especially being in the middle of my career. And I think about, first of all, the bias that our entire, I don't want to say industry, I think our entire culture is biased towards youth and looking young. And you just think about all the industries around looking young or feeling young or, retaining some kind of vibrancy. And you also see, to what you were saying before, the pipeline of young performers that are really being cultivated from a very early age. You think about some of these kids who started out, and you think about some of our biggest pop stars today, they were cultivated in the Mickey Mouse Club
Mm-hmm.
when they were 11, 12, 13 years old. You think about Alanis Morissette, who came through a children's show as well, and some of these young performers who ended up making it big as adults. Now, this is, again, I think more of a funnel where we're talking about a large number of kids narrowing down to a smaller number of kids, narrowing down to a smaller number of professional musicians who are kind of the top tier for the pop music industry. And I think you see a similar thing in country as well. But then at the same time, I feel like there are elders who have made it big or who are highly influential, who are still making waves and who are still making a difference. So I'm thinking about some of the rockers from the 80s or 90s who are still touring. People are still going out to see them, but also people who are just making good music still in their 60s or 70s. And we even think about Tony Bennett. We just covered a Tony Bennett song. And thinking about how he was making great music and elevating younger performers through the duets that he was doing. And so I just wonder about whether our perspective on the ageism in the music industry, is it a reflection of our culture, or is it a reflection of marketing? Is it a reflection of our values? Or is it us holding ourselves back because we think that there's a boundary, but there really isn't?
And there's a difference. All the people you mentioned that are doing it into their older ages, they didn't start then. They started when they were young. They
That's
didn't
right.
just, Tony Bennett didn't just, well, I'm 80. I think I should be a singer now. I'm going to duet with Katie Lang and then Lady Gaga, and I'm going to have a career. It's like those are reinventions of a career from when he was a young person.
Okay, that's fair.
So a lot of the things that we mentioned, like, oh, they're still doing it, that's different than this person saying, is there like an age to stop pursuing it? Like, oh, okay, it's not quote unquote happening for me. And then also that gets to what we have many times in our conversation is what is success to you? What is a music career to you? Do you get to play 3 times a month at the bar or club in your neighborhood and you're thrilled because you're an accountant and you thrilled that someone comes to see you 3 times a month and you make enough to get your drinks and that's all you want to do? Like that's perfectly great. Where someone else, all they want to do is quit their job and just travel the world doing music. It's just a different set of goals. So, in the original question, is there an age limit to stop pursuing your music career? Absolutely not. It just depends on what you want that to be.
Yeah, what your definition of success. I appreciate that, especially as someone who is not working in music full time. I actually don't know even if I have aspirations in that direction anymore. I'm also interested in thinking about what you said before in terms of the democratization of music production and music release and how that is impacting our perceptions as well. Especially as we're talking about what does it mean to build a following and build a business around it? And A couple of weeks ago, when you and I were recording, we had this side conversation about the Holderness family. This is a couple who really focuses on humor. They do a lot of skits, but they also do a lot of parodies. And a part of what they're doing really reminds me of Weird Al Yankovic and just that role that he plays in the music industry. They have really built a following on their different social media channels and they're building a business out of it. And I think about that and I'm like, wow, they have really made an entire business around this and have really built success around these various digital platforms. And I think it's working really well for them.
Yep, very cool. These days, with so much changing, it's about being creative and finding your way, finding the place that your art speaks and that it gets to people that will want to hear it. That's the trick now.
So let me ask you this question. What kind of encouragement would you give to someone who is maybe a little bit older, who is maybe looking at increasing the amount of music they're making in their life right now and thinking about leveling up where they are into that next area? Could be performing more, it could be performing for money, it could be increasing the scope and the impact of the music that they're making. What would you say to them?
No different from someone who's younger doing the same thing. I wouldn't do it different just because someone is older. It's the same stuff. Continue to grow, continue to find like minded artists, maybe to partner with, or places where you can perform your music live, places where you can get your music placed, and continuing to learn and just keeping at it, really. There's no other real magic other than just the dedication to it, continuing to grow and continuing to create.
I love that. And I am thinking about some of my colleagues working at a tech company. A number of them are musicians and they're releasing music on a regular basis. They actually share that. And a lot of the music is absolutely amazing. And so I think about the music that people are making as their side hustle. We also know that there are some of our friends who are working full-time jobs and they're packing out local bars. That's a big part of their local presence and they have followings and they've released albums. It is amazing to see how our music friends are really going out there and releasing their music to the world.
Yeah, that's it. Again, just being able to create and put it out there, and you just keep on doing it. That's all there is to it.
Awesome. Well, any last thoughts before we wrap up?
That's it. This was a good week.
All right. So we're going to wrap up for the week. But before we do, we would love to ask you a big, big favor. We would love for you to choose one of our episodes. This is number 18, so we have a whole lot of them, and share them with a friend. One of the things that we're trying to do is to grow our reach, and a big part of that is word of mouth. So, you, as our regular listeners, if you can just share one of our episodes with one of your friends, that would be amazing.
Yeah, whether it's a song that you remember that you have a friend that you guys you like this particular song and you want to share it. Hey, look, these people did this podcast about a song we love. Or, hey, there's this song I didn't really know and I think you'll like it as well. And these two crazy people blather on about it and I think you'll like it. So please share that. And also feel free to comment, subscribe, rate, review, all of that stuff. Any level of participation really helps. And we'd appreciate the feedback and the direction we're going.
Awesome. So, with that, we will see you all next week.
Bye.
I didn't want to interrupt you because it was not related. Oh no. Is that the second verse? No. Yes. A different. He was a different decade, right?
Use your words. Use your words.
Ah, sorry, I bit my own tongue.